all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
full
to enter a
macro
long trade.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. We're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, NEO, EOS, and ETP again. We're going to look weekly timeframes and zoom in. So a little bit of news in the sense that the FBI indicted 12 Russians for interfering with the election, and of course tagged along with the headline is that they used cryptocurrency for funding or payments or whatever. So we all know at this point that the media loves to talk about the dark web where Bitcoin is used for drugs or whatever else illegal activities. So that's a narrative that the media does attach to, and I've heard people attach to that narrative as well. So it does stick to a certain degree. And this now gives another topic of conversation where they can talk about this for a long time, and this can be their talking point for the media, and they point to this as an example. So we have to be aware that we're not going to ever stop hearing about the downside to the uses of Bitcoin because it's used for drugs and illegal activities. And again, this is just more fuel to that fire. And it doesn't help with overall perception by the general public. So have to keep that in mind. That is definitely a factor. It's not like the price dumped on that news or anything. It's just more of a long-term sentiment kind of deal. So we've talked about the ETF. People keep asking me questions about my opinion on the ETF. Did a video on it a few days ago. So already talked about that. And just want to, again, point out that the market is not pricing in an ETF because the odds of an ETF happening are not likely. So if the ETF passes and it's not anticipated, that's when we have a huge bullish reaction. If a news event is anticipated and then it occurs, that's where we have a sell the news reaction, when the date of the event is known and it's likely to happen. So it's all about probabilities when you're looking at news events in terms of the kind of reaction to anticipate from that. So we look at the FOMC. When the FOMC regulates monetary policy for the US, we go into that decision with, a probability of what is the likelihood that rates are going to increase or not. And when the market is really sure on something and it happens, we see a little price action because the market has done a really good job of pricing in the event and the probability was right. When the market says something's really likely to happen, and then it doesn't happen, that's when we see huge price movements because it catches the market by surprise, and the market then has to adjust and price in this new news that was not anticipated. So that's why it would fuel a more bullish reaction. But again, keeping in mind, I think in another video I said, 25% to 33% that this ETF would get approved. It's not likely. But if it happens, it's going to be a huge move. So I keep pointing out this weekly volume pattern on Bitcoin because it is important to watch, in my opinion, and we just have slow and steady declining volume. We got 2 more trading days here for this volume, but it's not going to be significant at this point comparative to the previous weeks. So we're still in this pattern of declining volume. And how this pattern is going to break, in my opinion, and it has the potential to take us to the next market cycle. So I've talked about 3 market cycles since I've been trading the last 14 months here, trading the crypto space. Raging bull, profit taking and shorts combined with very aggressive buying of the dips. And then pretty much since April, it's just been a slow fade and choppy action. Not ideal technical analysis, not ideal follow through, a lot of fake outs. We have a prime example from last night to be looking at on that front, which we will. But I think we could enter a 4th cycle. Obviously an ETF would be a 4th cycle, but I'm looking for this volume spike to potentially be that. So in the 2 scenarios that I see a volume spike happening are essentially the bear flag on the weekly is confirmed and we see another leg down into the low $5,000 range. That would happen on a spike in bear volume. Or we see the ETF approved, which is not a likely scenario, but if it were, we would see a huge volume spike and it would be a very significant bullish reaction. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, well, I'm not even going to try and throw out, numbers because again, that's just blind guessing. We have no idea what the reaction would be, but I would say bare minimum 10% instantly. So we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on it. I am not going to be holding my breath or keeping my hopes up. I am not going to be establishing a trading game plan based on that news passing. Maybe I'll have a small 20% position going into it, depending on the setup. And then if the news comes out, I just market order instantly. So that's a potential way to play it because if you go all in and hope on a less than likely probability event happening, the odds are not in your favor. You're not going to last long if you continue to do that over, years of trading. So Bitcoin on the daily, still a potential bear flag at this point. It's up to the bulls to prove to us otherwise. The daily chart has multiple inside bars now. So we formed that inside bar yesterday, another one so far today. Nothing's going on to break that just yet. And let's try and draw these lines here. There we go. Bulls have to see a bull break of the daily inside bars for us to have our daily higher low. Otherwise, we're still in the same period of consolidation. We had an inside bar and a bear break. Inside bars and a potential bear break would just keep this same period of consolidation in control. And we could absolutely see that happen because the RSI levels have cooled off on the shorter term timeframes that would allow it. And again, if we do get the bull break, we're going to be looking into the 6,500 range for the potential daily lower high and tightening equilibrium. So again, we're in a potential scenario where the bears have a lot higher percent chance of continuation down than the bulls do to see a 10% turnaround move and break key resistance. It's possible. It's possible to form this right shoulder, but it's just not the likely scenario. So the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, and here's this choppy action that I was talking about. So at the end of the video yesterday, we were talking about how the bulls need to see continuation on the 4-hour time frame, and we were talking about how the potential for a stop loss would be the low of consolidation if looking to enter a trade and have a short-term, should say a low-risk stop before you get the exit. We got the bull break, and then there's the fake out. So again, we're very familiar with this fake out at this point, and it can very quickly give you a signal to go in the other direction. So number one, if you do enter bullish on this move, I personally wouldn't be because bull breaks in the last couple weeks have not led to profitable trades. So ideally, you want to be entering on consolidation or 15-minute oversold RSI a couple times has been a nice entry. But again, I'm just not entering. I'm just patiently waiting for that daily chart to tighten up and give me a clear break. So another thing is if you're a bear and you see a big bull spike and then a big upper wick start to form, that gives bears confidence to just pile in knowing that a potential fade is coming. And remember, we just did this exact same thing at 6,800. We had a bull break. We came to that resistance, key resistance test, instantly pull back, and then the bears just run with it. So this is a potential signal on these shorter term time frames when we get a fake out or an entry in the opposite direction. And of course, now then the bulls buy the dip, 15-minute oversold, and here we are just in this tightening range on the 4-hour time frame and on the daily time frame, giving us those multiple inside bars. So I'm not doing anything but watching these levels. And even if they break, honestly, I'm probably not going to take a trade right now. Number one, I got stuff in life where I'm doing other stuff and I'm not sitting at the computer every day. And number two, it's just not an I want to see a break of this range is what I'm basically boiling down to. 5,780 and 6,800. That's when we're going to get some clarity, in my opinion. We could see all kinds of chop within this range until that does happen. So inside bars, short-term break of 63.40 is a potential bull break, and potential is the key word because of all these bull breaks with no follow-through that we see. And again, if technical analysis was like that in all trading markets and all trading environments, I wouldn't be a trader because there would be nothing to utilize technical analysis for to give us the edge because it would just be full of fake outs and bull breaks, bear breaks wouldn't really mean a whole lot. So have to be cautious in this environment. 63.40 resistance, support is 61.25, break that level, and we're likely going to see another leg down and approach the 5,780 support. ETH, weekly chart, also a potential bear flag. Daily chart, multiple daily inside bars. 425.10 break is bearish. 442.31 break is bullish. And let's see the volume on the weekly. Just a consistent, slow, steady drop off and patiently waiting for, just made the volume disappear, but you saw it, declining volume. I have to add that back. Bear with me. So daily inside bars, the weekly volume is dropping off consistently month after month, and we're going to look for a spike in this volume. It's either going to be a bear spike heading down to 360 support or a bull spike trying to break the weekly lower highs. Haven't seen 2 weeks in a row in months, 2 green weeks in a row. Bitcoin has seen 2 green weeks in a row, so a little bit different there. So Ethereum, again, just daily inside bars. The 4-hour time frame is showing us that equilibrium. I'm looking at the low of the dump, high of the bounce, higher low, potentially just forming a lower high right now. And you can see the daily inside bars. When you zoom in from an inside bar, you very often get equilibrium patterns. And when you have equilibrium patterns on shorter term time frames, you zoom out and can see inside bars on larger scale, more macro time frames. NEO USD on the weekly chart, also a potential bear flag at this point, heading back down towards that support. We've faded on the daily chart pretty consistently, and you can see we don't have those inside bars, a little bit more choppy, a little bull break, then a bear break, not a whole lot of follow through in either direction. But the bulls are trying to establish their daily higher low at 30.31, and resistance right now is 34.37. So we can see the bounce from our low got to that level, and now we're pulling back, potentially seeing a tightening range here as well. But very clear resistance is that the bulls haven't done a whole lot to break in terms of getting any kind of follow through on a 4-hour trend change. So there's no follow through on any of these names at this point on the 4-hour trend change, and we need that to be confident that our daily higher low has been set and that we are going to get this tightening daily equilibrium pattern that we're keeping an eye out for on Bitcoin. Exponential resistance on the 4-hour, still rejecting the price on NEO. So overall, bears still in control, and it's up to the bulls to start proving themselves on the 4-hour time frame to get back into a tightening range and for the bulls to head back to the upper $30. So EOS USD clearly stands out as the weakest name we've looked at so far because it has confirmed the weekly bear flag. It broke the low at this point and dropping down to a lower low. I am not on my magnet game today. There we go. 689. So we broke that level, little lower high, lower low. New resistance on the weekly is 944. Daily time frame shows that clear bear break. We had a tightening range, saw no follow through, increasing bear volume, and that's definitely a red flag. Inside bar here as well to be watching, forming today, but this definitely, if you're ranking any of these names from bullish to bearish, any name that has already broken to a lower low is definitely more bearish than all these names that are still holding that previous support level. So if we do see any kind of bounce here, anything under 943 is just another lower high, keeping those bears in control. 4-hour time frame, tightening range to be watching. So again, equilibrium because the daily inside bar is forming. Low, high, higher low, and we'll see if we form a lower high compared to 724. ETP BTC, we got to mention in the other video, I covered it a couple days ago, where lending for margin for shorting is not available. So in order, people, I talked about how the potential of entering coins that have run hard if Bitcoin's not doing anything because we know a slow fade is more likely than not. It's hard for people to enter those bearish positions, so the bulls are doing a pretty good job of holding up. We also highlighted how, we had seen the volume climax and the start to consolidation, but a 4-hour higher low was going to form because we had so much space to work with here. So we did form that 4-hour higher low, and now we see a tightening range that did get a little bit of a bull break. We broke the consolidation low of 2.4. So the bulls are still holding on here. Look at the 12-period exponential support on this 4-hour time frame. And this is why I love these exponential moving averages. But since the move started for the bulls, look where this bull cross occurred of the 12 of the 26 period. Since then, look how many times we have held this level as support during periods of consolidation. One candlestick, a couple candlesticks, closing just below it, but very quickly seeing recovery to get back over this level. And even now, we're grinding along this support, and 3 times in the past 2 days. So this is a very important support level. If we get a bear cross, it will be notable. I mean, the bull cross signal occurred down at 8, let's call it 9, and then we ran all the way up to 27. So a 200% move on that signal alone, and that's certainly something that we're going to be incorporating on the alert system in terms of we already have different moving averages, exponential moving averages, but the 12 and the 26, and we're going to start applying it to Canadian MJ names for alerts and stocks. That's a couple months away, but going to be incorporating these moving averages on stocks more. And this is something I'm taking. I took a whole basket of knowledge and information and experience from stocks to crypto. 12 and the 26 period is something I'm taking from crypto back to stocks to shift my game a little bit, see if it can give me some signals. And there have been plenty of times where I've been using it on commodities and oil, and I have really liked the price action around these levels. So I have been keeping an eye on it. But overall, as long as the bulls, you can see it's more of an equilibrium on the daily chart for ETP BTC. We have the high, the low of consolidation, and this might be our lower high here of 2478. So the range to be watching is 2.2 support and 2478 resistance. If we break 2.2, that gives us a little lower high and lower low on the daily, and we know further consolidation is coming, and we should see some profit taking and stop losses triggered if that 2.2 level does break. So that's where we stand overall. Did think of a story for story time here. I hope you all continue to do good things. And the story for story time is involving the goats. So when we got the goats, it was a very interesting social dynamic where I was talking about how, Lyra was the alpha goat and there's 3 females, so they don't have a male that they can defer to be, their protector. So there were plenty of times where I was talking about how I had to establish my dominance with Lyra, and even if it's just walking next to her, and she'll intentionally throw her weight into me and bump me around, and I'll have to do it right back to her, put my hip on her shoulder and push her to the side and show her, no, I'm guiding where we go right now. But in terms of the psychology of the herd makeup, it's very different where if you watch chickens and they have roosters around, the female chickens, all they're doing all day is, bathing in dirt and taking dirt baths and eating, pecking around, looking for stuff. So they're scratching around and they aren't looking around at all. They're completely relaxed and they're completely focused on looking for food. While the roosters have their heads up and they're the alarm clock. So I talked about how, when there's a hawk, the rooster will see it long before I will, and they'll make the noise that I recognize, and they're telling everybody, hey, there's a hawk in the sky. So the point is the females have no stress because they know that they have this guard there for them, and the goats didn't have that. So I was the alpha goat, and we as the humans were the alphas and their protectors. So they were very skittish and scared of things. They were scared of a shed that it was a perfect shed for them. In the winter when it's 20 degrees out Fahrenheit, we put fresh hay in there and a heat lamp, and they would not go in the shed because there was a bunch of mice in it. The mice are obviously not going to do anything to the goats, but they did not like this shed at all. And they would rather sleep on 20-degree concrete in the driveway than be in this heated, hay-filled, protected from the wind shed. So we had them free range for a long time. And if you know anything about goats, they don't control their bowels. They just walk and poop at the same time. It's just they run and poop at the same time. So they would just want to be as close to the house as possible. That was a good thing. If the goats ever get out, they want to be as close to us as their protectors as possible. They're not running away. They're coming straight to the house. So there were times where they would be free range and come towards the house, and then they just poop in the driveway all night. So every morning I would wake up and have to sweep it off. But it got to a point where we had to contain these goats, and also because they were eating the perennials and stuff like that. Obviously, you can't have a successful garden if the goats are running around eating whatever they want. So we ended up building, making fencing, and the fencing was the electric fencing that comes up to your waist. They could hop that in a second, so they easily got out of that, and they would even, get shocked and just run over it to be able to get out. And then we had other kinds. We went through so many different kinds of fences and so much frustration. We were on the brink of needing to give away these goats so we could grow crops and food and fruits and vegetables. But finally, we ended up, really building a tall fence, 6 feet tall, driving in 100 stakes plus, and using big rebar and all of that. So that finally worked. But there was a point in time where they would just, every night, they would leave their area with a heated lamp, come up to sleep literally on the doorstep or right on the driveway, and take freezing concrete over the shed. So we would have the hose. They hate water, so you spray the hose near them and they turn around and run away. But pretty much every single day was just trying to keep the goats away from the driveway. And we built all kinds of bamboo fences and gates to keep them out. It was just this funny, ongoing battle with them to keep them away. And there were times where we would come home, and there was one time, they know how to open the door. So Lyra would put her horns and her head on the door handle and just do this until it opened. So the door was unlocked, and we came home and looked in the window as we pulled in the driveway, and the 3 goats are upstairs in the kitchen just walking around, and we see their faces in the window. So they're incredibly smart, and they just wanted to be as close to us as possible. But it was the kind of scenario where, I built all kind of structures for them in the winter to keep them warm, and I even built a goat box, this big old goat box for them to go into, and I had a space heater in there. And obviously, there's fire risks and stuff like that, so we took the necessary precautions and bought the right equipment for that. But I had to sleep the first few nights. I would sleep out there in the goat box with them so they would, be okay and get comfortable with it. Otherwise, they would never go in it, and they would choose to be miserable and shivering rather than going to this scary new box that they don't trust. So ending it up with some videos here, we've got, I forget what videos I attached, maybe Nerdbird hanging out on my stomach as I'm laying down, and something with the goats, I forget. We'll see. Continue to do good things, everybody, every day, every situation. We'll see you tomorrow.